What if the sweetest steel guitar phrase you have ever heard is really a lullaby for a crime scene? Picture a jukebox glowing neon cobalt in a highway bar at 2 a.m., the air thick with fryer grease and last call cigarette smoke. A lonely record spins, crooning about moonlight and second chances, but the singer himself is nowhere. His car sits abandoned in a desert ditch, his guitar still tuned, his final chords hanging in the air like a question that never resolves. Tonight, we follow those unresolved notes through back roads and backstage doors, past crash sites, burned museums and murder houses, where the only audience left is the dust. 19 mysteries hide in the shadows of old country music, and each one asks the same thing. When the spotlight dies, who decides what story survives? Jim Sullivan should have become the genre's first cosmic cowboy superstar. In March 1975, he aimed his Volkswagen West across New Mexico, a trunk full of reel-to-reel demos about UFOs and lonely highways. He checked into a Santa Rosa motel, bought a bottle of vodka, then drove into the chaparral and disappeared. Deputies found the bug idling near a ranch fence, doors unlocked, guitar propped against the seat, cassette tapes labeled simply S-Tone on the console. There were tire tracks, but not a single footprint, as if the desert itself had swallowed him. Some say cartel lookouts mistook him for a narc and buried the evidence. Others insist the aliens he sang about finally answered back. Either way, the voice behind UFO never sang another note, and the desert kept its secret. Hank Williams, the hillbilly Shakespeare, met a quieter but no less confounding fate. On New Year's Day, 1953, a college kid hired to drive him to Ohio glanced in the rearview mirror and saw his passenger slumped in the back seat of a Cadillac, elegant jacket pressed flat, pale eyes half open. The death certificate blamed heart failure complicated by pills and drink, yet hospital logs were rewritten, the embalmer reported fresh bruises, and the driver vanished into polite obscurity. 36 years later, Keith Whitley, heir to Hank's Lonesome Sound, was found on his kitchen floor with blood alcohol readings so high, doctors called them lethal twice over. Friends swear Whitley had sworn off hard liquor, and a later audit revealed irregularities in the coroner's protocol. 2 legends, 2 empty rooms, and 2 case files stamped shut before the ink dried. Prophecy haunts this music like a minor chord. In early March 1963, Patsy Cline tidied her Nashville house, mailed a stack of thank you notes, and told her mother she felt kind of safe, ready to go. Hours later, her Piper Comanche fell from storm clouds into a Tennessee forest. Johnny Horton spent the autumn of 1960 telling bandmates he had dreamed of his own murder. After a late gig, he crossed a Louisiana bridge and was struck head-on by a drunk driver. Hawkshaw Hawkins, filling Cline's seat on the doomed flight, had just released Lonesome 77203, a single whose cryptic numbers fans now read like coordinates to a crash site. Whether omen or coincidence, each artist spoke their finish into existence and walked straight toward it. The sky itself seemed cursed between 1959 and 1964. A charter Beechcraft carrying Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper spiraled into an Iowa cornfield after its rookie pilot misread the horizon, an accident triggered in part by a last-minute seat swap that left Waylon Jennings alive, but guilt-stricken for life. Less than 6 months later, cowboy crooner Cowboy Copas and comic singer Cowboy Jones, 2 more country names tied to small engines, also fell from overcast heavens. In 1964, Jim Reeves took off in rain, radioed a cheerful, "Everything is fine," then vanished. Wreckage lay undiscovered for 2 days, although search planes flew directly overhead. 5 fatal crashes in 6 years taught Nashville a macabre calculus. A hit record sells, but a posthumous hit sells faster. Tragedy also walked on 2 legs. On November 10th, 1973, banjo comic String Bean Ackerman and his wife Estelle surprised burglars in their cabin and fell in the doorway. 2 bullets and 1 mystery about a rumored fortune still hidden somewhere in the walls. 12 years earlier, Western swing king Spade Cooley beat LMA to death, confessed, served time, and collapsed backstage from a heart attack the night parole let him perform again. Dottie West fared no better. A stalled Pontiac, a borrowed ride, failed brakes, and fatal injuries on the way to the Opry. Even morning was hazardous. Jack Anglin crashed while racing to Klein's service, deepening the talk of a curse that hunts the living as well as the lost. Some stories grow stranger after death. Graham Parsons overdid on pills and booze at the Joshua Tree Inn in 1973, and corporate handlers shipped his body toward a formal burial in New Orleans. His road manager, still buzzing from tequila and a mutual pact to be cremated in the desert, stole the coffin, drove it to Cap Rock, doused it with gasoline, and struck a match. The authorities fined him $75 for stealing the casket, less than the cost of parking tickets at LAX. Johnny Cash lost only a reel of tape, yet its absence feels equally supernatural. During the 1968 Folsom concert, an inmate supposedly confessed to a killing between songs, and Columbia engineers allegedly spliced the moment onto reel 3. That reel vanished during mixing, and archivists have hunted it ever since. Maybe it slipped behind a shelf, or maybe somebody decided that too much truth in a prison song could send the whole tower of myth crashing. Fire often wipes a slate quicker than ink. At dawn on September 20th, 1983, flames swallowed Roy Acuff's museum on the Opry grounds, taking handwritten fiddle charts, sequined stage suits, and the first harmonica Acuff ever owned. Fire marshals blamed faulty wiring, but neighbors swear they heard footsteps and a truck door slam seconds before the windows blew. No accelerant appeared in tests, yet the smell of diesel lingered on the parking lot gravel for days. $1 million in artifacts turned to ash, and no one was indicted. Not every haunting ends in flames. Loretta Lynn bought a Civil War plantation in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee, and quickly reported uninvited roommates, gray-coated soldiers pacing the halls, children's laughter echoing through empty bedrooms, and a piano that played itself in the dead of night. She invited television crews to film cold spots, published the stories in her autobiography, and still could not convince every skeptic. Then guests began leaving with photographs of orb-filled stairwells and recordings of fiddle strains nobody present remembered playing. Maybe the mansion is a tourist gimmick, or maybe the ghosts just prefer a singer who knows how to give them a verse. Pain that does not crash or burn sometimes turns inward. Mel Street greeted his 39th birthday in 1978 by closing the bathroom door, pressing a pistol to his chest, and pulling the trigger beside a Bible open to Romans. Executives murmured about personal demons, but friends pointed to contract clauses that stripped him of royalties and forced him back to bar rooms he had outgrown. Faron Young followed in 1996, leaving a note blaming market gatekeepers for turning radio against him. Depression is rarely simple, yet both men had complained that their calls for help were met with polite silence until the silence became permanent. Again and again, the pattern repeats. Critical artifacts disappear, autopsies contradict eyewitnesses, and insurance payouts settle questions nobody dares ask aloud. Search String Bean's chimney and you may find only soot. Request Hank's revised hospital charts and you will meet a locked drawer. Ask Columbia for that missing reel and you will get an apologetic shrug. The machinery that sells grief as vinyl is well oiled, and every mystery becomes another marketing angle. Box set liner notes, anniversary reissues, hologram tours. The legends grow, the evidence shrinks, and the truth staggers backstage looking for a microphone that is no longer there. Consider Jim Reeves one more time. Eyewitnesses heard his Beechcraft circle twice, engines steady, before it vanished behind summer rain. When volunteers found the wreck, charts, lyric sheets, and a picnic basket were scattered like confetti through cedar undergrowth. The cockpit clock was frozen at 1:53 p.m. The exact minute radio logs recorded Reeves saying he was beginning his approach. The Civil Aeronautics Board blamed low visibility, but independent pilots calculated he should have been miles away from the tree line. Either the instruments lied or someone misread them, and whichever is true, the oaks still hold the broken propeller as proof. Jack Anglin's last ride felt scripted by cosmic irony. The gospel singer spent the morning rehearsing a dirge for his friend Patsy Cline's memorial, then jumped into a white '62 Chevy for the quick drive to the church. 30 minutes later, police found the car upside down against a highway sign. Brakes ruptured, seatbelt unlatched, hymn sheets drifting across the asphalt like paper prayers. Mechanics determined the brake line had corroded weeks earlier, yet the coincidence amplified talk of a cursed circle around Cline's death. When the hearse finally rolled, mourners whispered that even paying respects might cost you your life. The mystery of Stringbean's fortune refuses to die. Old Opry hands swear he distrusted banks and stuffed cash behind clapboard walls or under porch stones. In the 70s, reporters photographed scavengers digging trenches beside his chimney. In the 90s, television crews followed a man with a ground-penetrating radar card across the property. Every time a metal detector chirps, rumors reignite, yet no stash larger than a few rusted coins has surfaced. Some speculate the killers found the hoard and fenced it quietly, while romantic souls prefer to believe a mason jar still waits beneath Tennessee clay. The bills brittle but unspent, proof that even theft can leave change on the table. Roy Acuff's lost artifacts inspire similar treasure hunts. One volunteer claimed to have rescued a scorched fiddle case, only for it to vanish from his truck bed during the drive home. Another insists he saw rhinestone cuffs lying intact inside the rubble the morning after, but by afternoon they had disappeared, boxed up perhaps, by a collector who valued souvenirs over sunlight. The insurance company cut a check, the Opry rebuilt, and reporters moved on, yet estate sales across the South occasionally list a charred mandolin or buckle said to come from Acuff's fire, items authenticated by nothing but a flicker in the seller's eye. Survivors live with their own phantoms. Waylon Jennings spent 2 decades waking from dreams in which Buddy Holly asked for his seat back. When the nightmares hit particularly hard, he would sit on the bus, stare at the fretboard, and pluck the opening of "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry" until dawn, a private penance made public only in later interviews. Tommy Allsup flipped the fateful coin with Valens and won, only to lose sleep for years every time a charter flight rattled in turbulence. They carried the weight of lucky chance the way other men carry mortgages, and their confessions remind us that statistics comfort mathematicians, never eyewitnesses. Ghosts do not spook accountants, yet the ledgers of Nashville tell a creepier tale than any midnight ballad. Royalty statements sometimes arrive blacked out like government files, payout percentages change without warning, and widows discover decades later that gold records were quietly recertified as silver, so a few zeros could be trimmed from estate checks. When Stringbean's nephews pressed the label for clarity, they were told key contracts had burned in an office fire that apparently scorched only the filing cabinet marked A to K. Patsy Cline's children ran the same maze, finding entire fiscal quarters labeled pending long after every copy of Crazy had been pressed, shipped, and sung to pieces in karaoke bars worldwide. The paperwork is missing, the money is missing, and the truth is treated like some outlaw boot-stomping across church pews. Everybody hears the commotion, but nobody dares stand up and point. Truth can also melt under hot lights. When Spade Cooley finally faced trial for beating Ella May, reporters packed the Los Angeles courtroom balcony as though it were an Opry debut. Cooley arrived in a spotless white suit, violin tucked beneath one arm, grinning at the jury with a showman's wink. Prosecutors produced the couple's teenage daughter, trembling yet defiant, who testified she saw her father stomp her mother until floorboards turned slick. The defense countered that Ella May's last words accused an imagined intruder, insinuating a burglary gone wrong. Photographs of bruises shaped exactly like cowboy boots suggested otherwise, but the jury still deadlocked on murder and settled for manslaughter. Behind the scenes, studio executives circulated memos urging columnists to frame the verdict as a momentary lapse by a beloved entertainer. Ella May's grave never issued a rebuttal. She just lay silent while radio spun her killer's records for one more profitable quarter. Artifacts, however, have a habit of resurfacing. In 2018, an unclaimed shipping crate turned up at a Memphis estate sale, stamped simply Klein. Inside lay a smoke-charred page from a March 5, 1963 set list, the eve of her fatal flight, annotated with hurried reminders about pilot fatigue, refueling stops, and alternate storm routes. Forensic ink tests confirmed her handwriting, yet meteorological logs reveal she flew the next day under skies even nastier than her scribbles warned against. Did the singer foresee the tempest, but feel career pressure to press onward? Or did someone else override her caution? The document disappeared into a private collection before historians could photograph every line, leaving only a grainy phone snapshot posted on an auction forum and swiftly deleted. Once again, evidence blinked out like a red recording light clicked off in the booth. Faron Young's closing chapters show how swiftly the spotlight can freeze into darkness. In the mid-90s, he found himself eclipsed by hat-tilted newcomers who mixed hip-hop drums with Telecasters. Frustrated, he drove down Music Row and stapled hand-painted placards, "I built this town, listen to me," onto telephone poles outside network headquarters. Executives chuckled, filmed the outburst for novelty news, and moved on. Months later, after he chose an irreversible exit, the very stations that had muted him looped tearful tributes between commercials. One disc jockey whispered off-air that guilt sells ads just as surely as nostalgia sells box sets. You can almost hear Young laughing at the bitter symmetry, a final punchline strummed on an unplugged guitar only ghosts can amplify. His echo floats down Broadway on humid nights, daring the neon signs to flicker in self-defense. Ask a skeptic and they will say these stories are simple arithmetic. Bad weather plus small planes equals tragedy. Unstable contracts plus fragile egos equals despair. Ask a believer and they will trace pentagrams across Tennessee and talk about crossroads deals struck at midnight. The truth probably loops somewhere between, tangled in profit incentives that push exhausted artists onto red-eye flights and into hotel rooms stocked with complimentary minibars. Nashville learned early that posthumous box sets churn steady revenue. Every press release about tragic loss ends with a catalog number. In that climate, a haunting is not supernatural. It's a market correction. So listen closely the next time a vinyl crackles between tracks. You might mistake the hiss for surface noise, but imagine instead it is Jim Sullivan stepping through desert brush or Johnny Cash straining to hear that lost confession echoing down a cell block corridor. Country music sells itself as 3 chords and the truth, yet some truths vanish behind police tape, corporate ledgers, and thunderstorm static. The melody fades, the arm lifts, and the silence that follows can feel louder than any applause. A hush packed with stalled engines, dripping gasoline, and dusty guitar strings still ringing in an empty room. If these ghosts want anything, it is simply to be replayed, to keep their stories spinning wherever curious minds still drop a coin. Stories haunt jukeboxes, and silence hums louder than the loudest applause ever. Keep the engine steady, and the memories louder than midnight. If any mystery tonight crawled under your skin, let the world know. Type your theory below. Strike that like button as if you were beating rhythm on a pawnshop Gibson. And share this video with the night driver who needs company on the next dark interstate. Subscribe, ring the bell, and cruise back next week when we chase the outlaw crimes the law actually solved, or thought it did. Until then, keep your headlights aimed dead center, keep your seatbelt fastened. And if the radio slips to static while you cross Tennessee at midnight, do not panic. That is just the ghosts tuning up for one last encore, and this time they want you singing harmony. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.